Hello, hope everyone enjoys watching our content. If so, please do subscribe the channel and support us. Today's video is explained by Mr. Steve.
Hi guys, welcome back to Fastcuts. Today, I'm going to explain a Korean drama film called Old Boy. In 1988, a middle-aged man named Oh Dae-soo was arrested for public intoxication and disorderly conduct on the night of his daughter's birthday. After his friend Ju-won bails him out, he calls his daughter on the phone to tell her to wait for him. However, before he can go home, he suddenly disappears, leaving behind the present for his daughter. Dae-soo soon finds himself locked up in a hotel room with no windows, not knowing who his captors were or why he was abducted. He is constantly fed through a trap door, but he's also gassed almost on a regular basis whenever his captors cut his hair, change his clothes, or clean up his room. The only way Dae-soo could learn about the outside world was through TV. One day, he finds out that his wife, Kim Ja-hyun, has been killed. His blood and fingerprints were found at the crime scene, so he has become the prime suspect. By this time, Dae-soo has started suffering from hallucinations. As months and years pass, he continues to descend into madness and tries to take his own life several times, but his captors revive him each time. Frustrated by his situation, Dae-soo starts keeping a journal and writes down the names of people who might have a grudge against him. He also starts training himself to fight in the hopes that he might use it against his captors someday. After about 6 years, he had begun to dig a hole through the wall using only a metal chopstick. Over the years, he keeps removing a few bricks from the wall until he can hold out his hand and feel the rain outside. Dae-soo starts planning his escape and covers the hole with the bed, but before he can completely hide it, he is knocked unconscious by the sleeping gas. As he lies on the bed, a woman arrives in his room and hypnotizes him. After 15 years in captivity, he emerges from the luggage and finds himself outdoors, wearing a brand new suit and a watch. After adjusting to the light, he sees his journals inside the luggage. He looks around and sees another man sitting on the ledge. Holding his pet dog, the man tells Dae-soo not to stop him from jumping off the building. Seeing another human being for the first time, Dae-soo takes the man's hand and holds it against his face. As Dae-soo continues to relish his freedom, the man asks him, "Even though I'm no better than a beast, don't I have the right to live?" Dae-soo just smiles and repeats the question. As the man was about to fall backward, Dae-soo grabbed him by his necktie. He tells the man to listen to his story first before killing himself. After telling his story, Dae-soo walks away and grabs his journals. He completely ignores the man who was hoping to reveal the reason why he wanted to die. As Dae-soo leaves the building, the man falls to his death on top of a car. Dae-soo starts contemplating his next move while walking around the city. He avoids contacting his relatives or friends, knowing that he is still a suspect in the murder of his wife. When he comes across a group of young men in the streets, he tries out his fighting skills against them. Using only his fists, he successfully beats them up and continues wandering through the city. While he was sitting in front of a seafood restaurant, a homeless man handed him a cell phone and a wallet full of money. The homeless man tells Dae-soo to avoid asking him any questions because he doesn't know anything. After inspecting the wallet, Dae-soo enters a sushi bar and asks the server to bring him something alive to eat. Dae-soo later recognizes the server as one of the contestants in a cooking competition on TV. When his phone starts ringing, he answers immediately and asks who's calling. The man on the other end taunts Dae-soo by asking if he liked his new suit. Dae-soo demanded to know why he was incarcerated and started speculating who was behind the abduction. The man on the phone says that his identity is not that important. He tells Dae-soo to reflect on his past and find out why he was locked up. The mysterious voice went on to ask Dae-soo to find him quickly and hung up. As Dae-soo puts down the phone, the server brings him a live octopus, as he requested. She asks Daesu if she should slice it up, but he just grabs it and starts devouring it. He collapses as soon as he finishes his meal. When he wakes up, he finds himself in the server's apartment, recovering from a fever. The server tells him that the medicine she gave him was quite effective. While walking toward the bathroom, the server tells Daesu that the lock is broken, but warns against him following her because she has a knife. Despite the warning, Daesu still goes inside the toilet and forces himself on her. The server thwarts his attempt by hitting him on the head with the butt of the knife. The server prepares to leave the apartment, but the server stops. She introduces herself as Mi-do and tells him that she is also interested in getting intimate with him, but she won't do it until she's ready. Daesu soon decides to look for his estranged daughter with Mi-do's help. They found out that a couple from Sweden had adopted his daughter. Daesu gives up on contacting his daughter and goes on a quest to find the man who abducted him instead. One day, Mi-do receives an online message from a man using the ID Evergreen, asking her about the Count of Monte Cristo. When Daesu comes closer to investigate, Evergreen asks him how he's doing in the bigger prison. Mi-do tells him that she's been chatting with Evergreen for some time, and they are talking about sushi. Daesu thinks that he can't trust Mi-do because of her online relationship with Evergreen, so he tries to find his captors on his own. He soon discovers the restaurant that delivers the food he ate while in prison. He follows a delivery man to the building where he was incarcerated and attacks a guard with a hammer. He later discovers that the prison is run by a criminal organization specializing in incarcerating people for a price. Daesu tortures the man in charge of the operation by pulling out his teeth with the claws of a hammer. The man named Mr. Park says he never met with the client who paid for Daesu's incarceration, but he recorded the phone call. Daesu takes the recording and he tries to leave the building, but a horde of men waits for him outside of Park's office. Armed with only his hammer and his fists, he fights them all off. He continues to fight even as he is stabbed in the back. When Daesu finally gets out of the building, he pulls out the knife and collapses on the ground. A man on the street helps him up and puts him inside a taxi. The stranger gives the driver an address and reveals himself to be responsible for locking up Daesu by calling him out by name. Unable to do anything because of his injuries, he just looks at the man as the taxi drives off. Back at home, he listens to the recording that he took from Mr. Park's office. He hears the man and Mr. Park talking about the length of incarceration and the types of drugs that they can use to medicate him if he develops schizophrenia during his captivity. When Mr. Park asks what Daesu did to deserve a lengthy incarceration, the client tells him that Daesu talks too much. The next day, Daesu pays a visit to his friend Ju Hwan to ask him if he recognizes the client's voice in the recording. Daesu helps Ju Hwan identify the client, but he also helps Daesu find Evergreen online. Evergreen taunts Daesu further by letting him know that the statute of limitations on him has already expired. Daesu goes back to Mi-do's home and starts torturing her to find out what she knows about Evergreen. As he tries to force more information out of Mi-do, Ju Hwan calls to tell him that he has discovered Evergreen's identity. Ju Hwan tells him that Evergreen's real name is Su-di-ah and he lives in a building just across the street from Mi-do's apartment. He immediately runs to the apartment and meets Evergreen and his bodyguard, Mr. Han. Evergreen tells Daesu that he will kill Mi-do in 5 days unless he uncovers the motive behind his incarceration. He offers to take his own life if Daesu succeeds. Evergreen tries to attack Daesu, but the bodyguard fends him off. Evergreen went on to tell Daesu that he would never find out the motive if he killed him. He further reveals that he's wearing a pacemaker that he can deactivate with the push of a button if Daesu tries to torture him. As Evergreen prepares to leave, he encourages Daesu to seek vengeance to deal with the pain of losing his wife and child. He reminds Daesu that he had locked Mi-do in her apartment with the door wide open. Daesu rushes back to Mi-do's place after hearing her scream. When he arrives, he sees Mr. Park and his goons abusing Mi-do. The goons overpower Daesu and hold him down as Mr. Park attempts to remove his teeth with the hammer. A phone call interrupts them, and Mr. Han later arrives at the apartment and offers a briefcase full of money to Mr. Park. After looking at the briefcase, he agrees to take it and leave. Dae-soo was unharmed. Dae-soo threatens to cut off Mr. Park's hand for abusing Mi-do. Dae-soo and Mi-do immediately leave the apartment after the goons leave. On their way to a motel, Mi-do sings a song to indicate that she is ready to get intimate with Dae-soo. After their lovemaking, sleeping gas seeps into their room and Evergreen goes in to leave them a package. When they open it, they saw Mr. Park's severed hand. Dae-soo realizes that Evergreen has bugged them, so he goes to a shop to find the device to get rid of it. Sometime later, Dae-soo and Mi-do stop by Ju-hwan's internet cafe to learn more about Evergreen. As Mi-do goes through the search results on the internet, Dae-soo and Ju-hwan soon realize that Evergreen was the name of their batch at their old high school. Dae-soo and Mi-do go to the school to look at the yearbook for the class of '79. He learns that Evergreen was a fellow student named Lee Woo-jin. Dae-soo calls Ju-hwan to ask if he knows anything about Woo-jin. Ju-hwan says he doesn't recognize the name. Dae-soo starts asking Ju-hwan about a female student named Su-ah. Ju-hwan tells Dae-soo that she died after he transferred to another school. When Dae-soo asks for more details, Ju-hwan tells him that Su-ah was a very promiscuous girl. Unbeknownst to them, Woo-jin was at Ju-hwan's cafe during the phone call. Enraged by how Ju-hwan described Su-ah, Woo-jin kills him and reveals to Dae-soo that Su-ah was his sister. Dae-soo tracks down Mr. Park to ask for more details about his incarceration. Due to the loss of his hand, Mr. Park willingly tells Dae-soo that he has drugged the water to make him more susceptible to hypnosis. He also agrees to keep Mi-do safe while Dae-soo goes on to find Woo-jin. Another former classmate tells Dae-soo that Ju-hwan spread the rumors about Su-ah's promiscuity. Dae-soo later recalls that he had accidentally witnessed Woo-jin and Su-ah engaging in intimate acts. He remembers that he had told Ju-hwan about it just before he transferred to another school. Using the clues left behind by Woo-jin, Dae-soo was able to locate his former captor. He confronts Woo-jin and accuses him of using hypnosis to erase the memory of what he witnessed in school. Woo-jin argues that it wasn't hypnosis that made him forget the incident. Dae-soo simply forgot about it because it wasn't something that should concern him. Woo-jin reveals that the rumors about Su-ah getting pregnant started to spread soon after Dae-soo left the school. The gossip got so bad that Su-ah began to believe she was actually pregnant. Woo-jin blamed Dae-soo for spreading the rumors. Dae-soo accuses Woo-jin of killing his own sister because he feared people would find out about their illicit relationship. Woo-jin dismisses the accusations and starts recounting how he arranged the meeting between Dae-soo and Mi-do with the help of a hypnotist. He shows Dae-soo a photo album of his wife and child. As Dae-soo flips through the album, he sees photos of the child growing up. Dae-soo is horrified as he finds out that his daughter has grown up to be Mi-do. Enraged by what he discovered, Dae-soo attacks Woo-jin, but Mr. Han stops him. Dae-soo struggles to fight off Mr. Han, but he manages to injure him. Despite his serious injury, Mr. Han is still able to subdue Dae-soo. After watching the altercation for some time, Woo-jin gets frustrated and decides to kill his own bodyguard. Woo-jin goes on to tell Dae-soo that Mr. Park is still working for him. Back in Mr. Park's building, Mi-do is presented with a gift box and is told to open it. Dae-soo tells her over the phone not to look inside and to wait for him to get back. Dae-soo starts begging Woo-jin not to reveal the truth to Mi-do. He kneels in front of Woo-jin and starts barking like a dog as a sign of his submission. Failing to make an impression on Woo-jin, he decides to cut off his own tongue. Woo-jin finally relents and tells Mr. Park to keep the gift box closed. He walks away, leaving Dae-soo with the remote control for his pacemaker. However, when Dae-soo pushed the button, it only played an audio recording of him and Mi-do making love. Woo-jin walks into the elevator and starts recalling Su-ah's death. Woo-jin tries to save her from falling, but Su-ah tells him to let her go. As soon as the elevator opens, Woo-jin shoots himself in the head. Now living in the secluded countryside, Dae-soo writes a letter to the hypnotist to tell his story and ask her for help. She tells Dae-soo that she initially had no intention of helping him, but the last part of the letter convinced her. In the last sentence of the letter, Dae-soo asks, "Even though I'm no more than a beast, don't I have the right to live?" The hypnotist warns Dae-soo that something might go wrong and mess up his memory. Dae-soo agrees to go ahead with the session anyway. She proceeds with the hypnosis and tells Dae-soo that his mind will be split into two personalities. The first personality will not know the truth about Mi-do, while the other one is the monster who will keep the secret. The monster will start walking away and age 1 year with each step until he reaches 70 and dies. Later on, Dae-soo wakes up alone in the snow. Mi-do comes over and tries to warm him up. She embraces Dae-soo and tells him that she loves him. Dae-soo breaks into a smile upon hearing about Mi-do's feelings for him, but the smile slowly turns into a look of grief and pain as they continue to embrace. So guys, as the movie ends here, if you liked the video, please do subscribe to my channel and hit the notification bell for more updates. Thank you.